Hi, hello English readers, and welcome to Lydie's Book Club August live read along. I'm Lydie and I'm an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Lydie's Book Club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature and contemporary novels. Each month we read and explore a different book for all levels of English, and once a week I meet the members of the book club in a live workshop via Zoom to discuss the chapters of the book that we are currently reading. In this book club, I also tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading the contemporary novel Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. She is a British writer. This is her debut novel. And this we are reading this book in its integral text, so you have to have a C1 plus advanced level in English, otherwise it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to understand the plot. If you'd like to know more about the novel and the plot and what the story is about and Julia Armfield's work, I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 23, an introduction to Julia Armfield and Our Wives Under the Sea, available on this YouTube channel and on the Spotify podcast Reading English. Over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to host 10 live reading sessions that you'll be able to 10 Instagram live reading sessions that you will be able to rewatch on the YouTube channel and to listen again on Spotify podcast at your own pace, really. So that's quite convenient when you're not able to attend the lives. In addition to these 10 live reading sessions, I'm going to host 3 live workshops based on the novel, this one, so that the members of the book club will be able to improve their speaking skills and share their views on the novel. And these live workshops will be hosted via Zoom on 3 Saturdays. So make sure that you subscribe to the book club to be part of the conversation and attend the Zoom sessions. You can find all the information and the dates of the workshops by clicking on the link in the description of this video. You just follow the subscription link and you will find a page where you have all the dates and everything. Also, I'm pleased to announce that from now, you can purchase the 3-part live workshop on Daisy Jones and the Six, our July live read along. Again, this is a C1 plus advanced reading, so be aware of that. And you can purchase the recorded sessions of this live workshop on my website store. So once you purchase the workshop, you'll be asked to create a login with which you get a private access to the videos to watch and enjoy at your own pace. Right. So that being said, today it is our 3rd session of Our Wives Under the Sea live read along, and we are going to read pages 37 to 58 today. But before I get started, as usual, I do a quick recap of the reading that the reading session, the previous reading session, which was yesterday. But as it's not always I'm not always doing a live reading each day. There is a sort of a schedule that you can find on my website or by following me on Instagram or Facebook. If you remember Facebook, you find all the live reading schedule. So session 2 was yesterday, and we read page 20 to 33. So Leah is probably a scientist because there clues that indicates that she works for a research center or a marine center, because Miri often talks about the center, calling the center. And Miri is Leah's wife. So this is a women couple. And Miri, in this chapter, page 20, on this edition, is trying to ask something. She's calling the center. She has someone from the center on the phone, and she's trying to she's asking something, but it seems like this person, this employee of the center, can't help her. So we don't know what yet. But she cannot give her what she wants. I'm afraid I can't do that. It's repeated 3 times. I'm afraid I can't do that. I'm afraid I can't do that, because she needs, so this person from the center needs Leah to be on the phone, but it seems like Leah is not responsive to Mary's call, or to Mary's request to get on the phone. Instead, Mary is often, she locks herself in the bathroom, sorry, and she has all sorts of strange behaviors. She sleepwalks, and it seems like it's something that she didn't used to do. And she holds her head under the water as well, and she often fills up the bath to the point of the water overflowing. And it seems like Leah is unconscious of her change of attitude, because at some point she's asking, so she's telling Mary, you don't need to look at me like that. It's okay, she says to her. It's okay. So she's not very aware of her odd attitude. Odd, ODD is means strange, weird. And it seems like it appears that they don't communicate. It's been mentioned a few times before, the beginning of the novel. They don't communicate anymore as they used to. Because at some point Miri says, page 21, she doesn't know that the first time I noticed the change, she doesn't know that the first time I noticed the change in her skin, I was so alarmed that I called 111. So it seems like Miri is not telling her things, and she is not sharing her feelings as well, and how scared she is about Leah's behavior. Then we meet a new character, Carmen, who is an old friend of Miri and probably of the couple, and she's asking how things are going. She's asking Miri, because they met at the supermarket. She's asking her how things are, and there is a little misunderstanding here, because Leah is assuming that it's weird now that Leah is back, because she went on this mission. I just recap a little bit that Leah went on this deep sea mission in a submarine, and something happened during this mission, because they were meant to leave, or the mission was meant to last 3 weeks, and in the end they stayed 6 months under the ocean. So without having much connection with the center. So at the point of the narration, Miri is talking when Leah is back. So here we are. So there are flashbacks from the past, and these two characters are remembering about recollecting their memories about the past. And here Carmen is assuming that it's strange now for Miri to have to share again the space in the flat, but she's quite missing the point, because it's not what really bothers Miri. Actually, she doesn't, but Miri doesn't really share or express fully her feelings about the situation. She stays quite vague and says, "I never minded sharing the space. That felt like the whole point of living together." So she actually regrets the time where it felt like they were sharing the space and not living like strangers in the end. And yeah, I underline also that phrase, 1,000 years ago, Leah held a hand over my mouth in the bathroom at a wedding of a mutual friend. So here is Mary remembering this time during this friend's wedding, and it is written and she says 1,000 years ago. So here, like the narrator is using, well, the writer is using this exaggeration to emphasize the idea that there is this distant love, distant feeling of love, and that it is a time that doesn't exist anymore. 1,000 years ago, it feels very far and disconnected from the reality now, and to the present time, and to disconnected from the relationship that they have now. So yeah, and so far away from the present day and their present relationship. So yeah, so this is what I wanted to mention as well, so that maybe if you read this passage, if you haven't read this passage yet, and that's page 25. So if you haven't read this passage yet, maybe you pay more attention to it. And if you've read it, maybe now you have a deeper understanding of that passage. And maybe if you have any other suggestions or something, because I mean, I'm just doing a quick recap, and I'm not gonna stop to all passages, but if there is something that that spotted your attention and that I didn't mention, then please feel free to comment on it and share your thoughts as well on this passage, or any passage anyway, in the novel. That will be so enriching as well to add to the understanding of this novel. yeah, after that, again, this idea of we say nothing to each other, the fact that there is no communication, and it, in a sense, also that Mary seems to be scared of talking to her, because there is this repetition of I want to tell her, I want to tell her, or I want to say to her, I imagine the things that I want to say to her. Uh, but increasingly, I find myself capable of, but increasingly, I find myself capable of producing little, but a kind of mental white noise. So in the end, she doesn't say anything. And it feels like she cannot communicate with her anymore. And also, although she wants to, there is something that it's blocking Miri. There is this wall between the two of them, and it feels that Miri is trying. Yeah, it feels like she's trying to climb this wall, trying to connect with her, but in the end, she falls and relent to say what she really feels, and express herself freely. So yeah, it's quite sad when you see that there is a shift in a relationship between having to experience something that it's not there anymore, especially that they seem to had to have to they seem to have very strong, very um um very passionate relationship. I mean, a very connected relationship. Um, it's like this passage with when Mira talk about uh, the fact that they used to watch movies, page 30, and page 31, I watch movie alone now. So you have this parallel between um, between the past and the present, and how things have changed since Leah got back to come back, since Leah got back home, and the this very this point of connection that they have through films um, seems like it's something that they have lost. Um, so the first sentence, page 30 of the passage says, "We used to watch movies. It was our thing, our first obvious point of connection. Our first date, our first dates revolved around it, watching movies." And then you've got the first sentence of this paragraph, page 31. "I watch movies alone now. Leah's concentration is not what it used to be." And so that, yeah, made me think that they have lost this point of connection. And the fact that Miri is constantly remembering their past and what their relationship used to be feels like Miri is stuck in the past, and seems like she cannot let go of that past, and cannot stop remembering those good memories. Um, and there is also an important aspect here mentioned, is that they used to, the first time Leah stayed over at mine, we watched Jaws. Jaws is this suspense thriller kind of not thriller, but suspense movie about this shark eating everyone, and it's very famous. I forgot to check who was the director. I think it was Spielberg, something like that. So it's a very it's a reference in the cinema as well. And the iconic film of the 90s. Yeah, I think. And then the last 2 pages, and then the last 2 pages of yesterday's session, 32 and 33, are Leah's, is a chapter in which Leah is recollecting her memories from the incident in the vessel. And there is this line that says, "The deep sea is dark." And it feels very much like what is dark now in the present is her mind. So that's a parallel that we can do. And here she mentions the strange shaped ocean creatures smiling at them, because in this ship, a submarine, they are, it seems like there are 3 inside. I mean, maybe there are other members in the crew, but she talks about Jelka and Matteo, and she says us. So it seems like it's the 3 of them, maybe more. But yeah, she's mentioning these creatures in the deep ocean and smiling at them. And here again, you've got the reference, the theme of the teeth that comes back, and smiling with all their teeth. And as mentioned before, the film Jaws, on the cover of the film, of the film cover, the film poster, is this huge, is this shark with open mouth, and you can see the huge teeth of this, the enormous teeth of the shark. So here you've got this this reference to the teeth and the marine creatures. So maybe that might give us a hint of what happened with if the films evokes probably what happened to the crew, but I don't know, baby people died. Maybe they've been, it'd be interesting to speculate on what happened in the vessel. Perhaps your mind is already thinking about what could have happened, and maybe it seems like Leah survived, but did Jelka and Matteo survived during this mission and during the accident? Have them, or did they get eaten by the sharks or the creatures of the ocean? Who knows? We'll see. Okay, so now let's get started with this new section. I remember there are 5 zones in this paragraph. 5. The book is divided in 5 sections, and this is the second one, the twilight zone. Okay. Miri. So that's the chapter, Miri chapter. There was a cocktail party to celebrate their going away. White wine and twiglets held in a hotel conference room by the center for marine inquiry, and three men in turquoise suits playing bossa nova music on a platform near the door. I spent much of the night caught up in an interminable conversation with a man who specialized in seaweed. Specialized in what sense, I wasn't sure. He introduced himself as such, and I didn't care to probe. "Which one is yours?" is asked at one point, gesturing towards the group stood furthest from the buffet, as though asking me to identify my jacket from a pile. Leah was standing at the outer edge of the group, holding a glass and talking in a tone that seemed flushed through with bright authority, though I wasn't close enough to hear what she was actually saying. Her dress was white and clung to her like sealskin. She didn't often wear dresses, though when she did, it always seemed to choose the ones that looked like something else: cocoons and folded paper, carapaces, wetsuits, wings. Like an insect that mimics something else. At a distance, it could often be hard to tell quite what it was that you were looking at. Dressing for formal events, I often thought of her like this. She sheathing herself with the intent to deflect. She didn't much enjoy being looked at. There's a lot about it, the seaweed specialist said when I pointed Leah out and explained what we were to each other. "My brother's wife has a sister, same thing." So here it seems like they refer to the fact that they are a couple. They're gay. And his sister is gay. The venue was over bright, my mouth raw from hot coffee drunk too quickly sometime that afternoon. A strange atmosphere, something like tension in the walls, in the way people spoke to each other. I felt stripped of too many of my senses, concerned about my rhythm, about the exact small sequence of movements required to put my hand on Leah's arm. Earlier in the evening, we had fought. I forget about what exactly. So certainly not about her going away or any reservations I might have had about the trip. If it were possible now to look back and feel at least secure in the fact that I had predicted something, noted some foul planetary alignment and spoken my fears aloud, that might be of some comfort. As it was, I suspected nothing. Leah had gone and returned many times before, and I had no reason to presume this trip would be any different. What we argued about had been something banal, impossible to recall, and easy enough to guess at. Leah never whipping the surfaces down unless prompted. Leah never giving me 2 seconds just to stare into space without asking me what I was thinking. Very often, people argue as a way of expressing the fears and frustrations they cannot say aloud. It would, perhaps, be easy enough to claim that Leah's impending departure was what prompted me to pick fights unnecessarily and often. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not certain that's what it was. Often enough, it's occurred to me that fighting is simply something I'm given to, like picking at my cuticles. Whatever it was we fought about, The climax was loud, fraught, and quickly forgotten. We had never been very committed fighters. Bite and scratch, and then grew bored, too quick to appease and to declare ourselves the ones at fault. The problem with relationships between women is that neither one of you neither one of you is automatically the wronged party, which frankly takes a lot of the fun out of an argument. That night, the fight sat between us like something sore and satisfying. Tender pulp of a fresh pulled tooth. Again, the topic of tooth, like a fresh pulled tooth. The sense of something better off removed. I felt good to have scrapped and apologized. Moving around the party, I registered the ache between us and felt grateful, irritable, loved her easily. She brought me a glass of something, pulled my hair from where it had slipped down. The neck of my dress. It had slipped down the neck of my dress, kissed my temple, and snorted when a woman from the center introduced herself, despite having already spoken to me several times that night. I'm sorry, the woman said when Leah pointed this out to her. One of those nights. It's all blah, 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 hee, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Leah explained that the two of them would be crewmates on the forthcoming expedition, that they had actually worked together before. I nodded and smiled and asked if she was looking forward to the trip, as much as anyone looks forward to a long commute. The woman replied, and Leah huffed a laugh, kept an arm around my shoulders. Jelka thinks she's such a scream, she said to me, and the woman shrugged and asked me what I did for work. Okay, so this woman seems to be Jelka, the character already mentioned by Leah. I remember the way it felt to stand with the two of them, the way people turned to look at them, occasionally interrupting our conversation to shake their hands. It's like you're famous. It's like you're famous. I teased at one point, and Jelka made a face. That's just what these people are like, she said, raising an eyebrow at Leah. Weird, weird people. Haven't I said this since we came to work here? Leah laughed, leaned more heavily into my side. Leaning, so she went towards her. Leaned more heavily into my side. You just like being mean about people, she said. There's nothing wrong with them at all. At the end of the night, so this night seems to be the farewell party, farewell. It's just the goodbye party before they went on the ship, on the mission. At the end of the night, there were toasts, well wishes for the expedition, joking exhortation not to stay away too long. Not funny. A woman waxed lyrical on advances in technology, on the research opportunities opened up by the center's commitment to modernity. The atmosphere, though convivial, seemed shot through with something undefined, unidentifiable, strange sensation, almost a flavor in the air. During the toast, I saw several people from the center standing with hands clasped in front of them and under their chins, the way you might expect to witness a church event. I stood with Leah and registered a sense of unzipping, turned my head into her neck, and whispered that I was sorry about the fight. Okay, so now back to the present, maybe, because here She's recollecting this time at the time at the party. Now it's probably the present. I'm reading a book I found in a charity shop, flipping through in the hopes of encountering notes made by previous owners, which is one of my favorite things to do. Leah used to buy me books chosen purely on the strength of this, presenting me with copies of Das Kapital or Middlemarch. So Das Kapital is from Karl Marx, is a fundamental book on economy. And Middlemarch is the famous novel of George Eliot, a British writer, with inscriptions scrolled across the title pages by people I will never meet, for Doreen without apprehension, for Jack on his birthday and despite his behaviour. The book I am reading is a textbook on human anatomy, coffee-stained and sticky to the touch, long chunks of text irregularly underlined at points referring to nerves, to nerve endings and dormant human tissue, as though the previous owner had been using it to build a monster in a shed. Structurally, I read aloud to myself, for no other reason than because it is underlined. There are 3 classes of sensory receptors: free nerve endings, encapsulated nerves, free nerve endings, encapsulated nerve endings, and specialized cells. Free nerve endings are simply free dendrites at the end of a neuron that extend to a tissue. Pain, heat, and cold are all sensed through free nerve endings. Leah has been in the bathroom for upwards of 2 hours, running the taps and listening to her sound machine, which fills the flat with a foaming swell of noise. I haven't asked her to come out this morning. I rolled over and refused to get up when I heard her at the sink at 6:15. Only today, I told myself, pulled the pillow over my face and promised I would get up and help tomorrow. I have yet to get used to the spare room, puddle my clothes on the carpet with the effect of one returned to a childhood home for Christmas and reluctant to do any washing. There are glasses piled on the table beside the desk, sour with nighttime water, dust-drowned spiders. I've taken several books from their old spot in the bedroom and used them to hold the door ajar at night. So she's leaving the door a little bit open, ajar. I didn't take possession of the spare room immediately on Leah's return, but rather moved across in a strop one night when Leah had kept me awake, sleepwalking back and forth between bedroom and bathroom, lying down only to get up again. I had intended to stay in the spare room only one night, and yet somehow never moved back. This is something I am, for the moment, not willing to examine too closely. Sometimes in the dark, I imagine I hear Leah knocking on the wall that separate us. Neat little knocks that request not entry, but only conversation. Not real, of course, but sometimes it occupies my mind when my home seems to fill with water and I find myself without the correct material to plug the gaps. I have read the majority of the book on anatomy by the time I hear the bath begin to drain, the door open, and Leah padding out and back into the bedroom. Wet feet on carpet, door click, and then quiet. I get up the way I always do. I move across the corridor to scrub at the bath with the sponge I keep beneath the sink. I have found that since returning, Leah is prone to ring the bath with a scream of some curiously viscous material, oddly gritty when rolled between fingers and thumb and pinkish in the white bathroom light. When I look at it, I think of tide pools filled with tiny creatures. Scrub at it hard before running the taps again to clear the debris. Little rock pool remains of something that might be shell or might be skin or might be something else entirely. I squeezed the sponge out in the sink. I squeezed the sponge out in the sink and stow it. Wander back to the spare room and think about doing some work. Okay, another time, another flashback probably. People grow odd when there is too much sky. They lose the sense of land around them, think themselves into floating way. When my mother was dying, I wanted her moved somewhere other than where she was, wished her away from the wide, bright vista that spilled into her room every morning, sending her, as I felt at the time, undeniably mad. The house was built into a cliffside over the water, offering wide open views across the tops, from the Duffling copse that covered the headland to the Davy elms that lined the ridge. The trees around her house were always bent down, stomach ached in the wind. Her windows smeared with the body of insects that hurled themselves against the glass in search of respite from the weather. She had lived by the sea for some 17 years, largely alone except for when the nurse became essential. The medication eased involuntary movements, but increasingly there arose a danger of choking, of falling, of not being able to climb the stairs. She refused almost every aspect of my help, the way women will when they've been bred to accept little more than the basest civility. Patronizing, my mother used to say, when her hairdresser made a joke that veered towards the familiar, when a friend invited her to join her divorcee's coffee morning. So she's saying I'm the kind of sad act who needs to hang around with other sad acts and whip into my tea until it's time to go home? Well, no, thank you, chum. I'm quite happy on my own. It was very easy to offend my mother, rather in the way that it's very easy to kill an orchid. It often seemed little short of inevitable. Visiting her brought with it the implication that you regarded her as lonely. Failing to visit her was an insult all its own. A birthday presents bore about a 50-50 chance of misconstrual. My mother, poring over a book of French Revolutionary history, pulling a pair of jade earrings from a box, pursing her lips for a second and nodding, I see, as though she quite understands the insult. Typically, when I visited, we spoke on only very general topics. My hair, the weather, what it was exactly that I did for work again. I loved her, and I and at a distance, which made it easier to do. Experienced brief but powerful compulsion to hug her, and almost never did. She was ill for a long time. A white-knuckled, unbecoming illness that was also, as it happened, frequently passed down from parent to child. I sent my mother flowers and boxes of Jaffa cakes. Those are very famous cakes in the UK. You've got those in France. They're called Pims, and if you know the brand Pims, they're like very soft cake with chocolate on top. And in France, we have them in strawberry or raspberry flavor, and orange as well. And when I used to live in the UK, they only have orange flavor, and it's quite I actually like both flavors. But in the UK, they only have orange. It's quite funny. And those are Jaffa cakes. And yeah. So if you Google it, you will see. And I sent my mother flowers and boxes of Jaffa cakes, and visited her less often than I was. Less often that was kind. And visited her less often that was kind. Towards the end of her illness, it became too difficult for her to live on her own, and she was moved into full-time hospice care. I remember the day I moved her out, a sky like scalded milk, the smell of something burning. I remember the slip of skin between her knuckles, her white blonde hair, the heavy jewelry of bones too clear beneath the surface. But perhaps not this just yet, actually. I'm not sure but perhaps not this just yet, actually. I'm not sure I have the stomach for it. And then now it's probably back to the present. The sofa again, and Leah talking the way she does, not at me, but at some point to the general, but not at me, but at some point to the general left of me, soliloquizing at the wall. So soliloquizing is the act of talking to yourself aloud. So here she's talking aloud. Well, she's talking to the wall, basically. Some people, she says, think the granite floor of the Pacific was torn away to make the moon. Darwin's son, actually, he said that when the Earth was young, it rotated very quickly. It went so fast that part of it flew off into space, and the Pacific is the scar it left behind. Cool, I say. I'm trying to watch television. I sit where I am and don't look at her. She's wearing a tank top that shows the strange silvered places in her underarms and around the base of her neck, and I no longer feel much compelled to comment on this. I find that if I squint at the television hard enough, it's easier to think about things other than how much I miss my wife. Right, now, Leah chapter. In the sea, there is no such thing as natural horizon, no place for the line of the sky to signify an end. When you sink, which we did, long hours of sinking, you can't see the bottom, and you can't see the top, and the ocean around you extends on both sides with no obvious limit except the border around your own window. The earth and its certain curvatures, and its certain curvature, like curvature, becomes far less clear underwater. Jelka stopped praying after the first hour and instead started humming, which was worse. I considered saying something and then willed myself to kindness. How would you feel? I thought, forgetting for a moment that I was in the exact same position as her. Technically speaking, there was nothing to fix, and so no way we could go about fixing it. Matteo continued to batter vaguely at the console and I helped him, but it was not my job and wouldn't have had much effect when even if it had been. At one point, Matteo caught his elbow on the corner of the comms deck. The comms is communications desk. And cursed, drawing up sharply and swearing he could break his neck in a fucking toy box craft like this. I clicked my tongue and told him to stop before he broke something worse, actual money. I'm not sure why we behave this way, to be honest. It feels odd, on reflection, to consider the very little we choose to do as we fell beyond diveable depth and still further. I know it occurred to me in a distant fashion that an alarm ought to have gone off to alert us to a battery failure, however many hours ago. I know it occurred to me too. It occurred to me too that we'd need to release weights to slow our descent once we reached 35,000 feet. But now, had no obvious way of doing that, nor any way of telling how far we'd dropped. It occurred to me that falling too fast and landing too suddenly, wherever we did eventually land, would surely result in a catastrophic rupture of the craft outer shell, with upwards of 6 miles of water on top of us. All of this occurred to me, certainly, but only at a kind of remove. It was like the dispassionate realization that one has left the house without first turning a light out. Unfortunate, but hardly a disaster. I don't remember thinking we would die. So much as noting that we wouldn't be able to come back up again. I don't remember thinking we could fix this, only wondering what would happen next. At some point, Matteo brought out 4 wide electric torches and placed them around the base of the main deck. Since the console lights had failed, we'd been sitting in semi-darkness and in this fresh illumination. I looked about the craft the way one might peruse a spot the difference game, the same, but with deliberate mistakes. Same console, but with all the buttons dim. Same machinery, only silent. Same Jelka too, only hunched about the base of her chair, pulling quietly at the skin around her nails. Certain things, however, remained as I remembered them. Matteo's Cthulhu, mobbled head, suckered to the ledge beneath the main window. Jelka's rosary looped around the console, stand the way you'd hang prayer beds from a rear view mirror. I remember thinking idly that we ought to have brought air freshener, hung the little pine fresh trees like talismans around the deck. Do you think, I said at some point, I forget what point exactly, that we ought to do something. Neither of them said anything to this, although Matteo did begin to whistle, which was a weak advance on Jelka's humming. He whistled tunefully and through his teeth. Farewell and adieu to your fair Spanish ladies, swooning low about the tin can confines on the craft. Low about the tin can. A swooning low, sorry. Farewell and adieu to your fair Spanish ladies. That's what he's whistling. Swooning low about the tin can confines of the craft. And now there is a little plus again. So it seems like she's speaking about the present. Oh, no, maybe the past. Yeah, because here she's recollecting memories from the present time. So that's probably here a memory. Well, she's remembering about the accident, and here that's probably much more an older memory when she was younger. When I was 7, my father taught me to swim, by which I meant that he wrenched my knuckles from the side of the municipal swimming pool and hurled me into the deep end with a rustleness bordering of zealotry. Just keep your head up, he yelled, impassive to my shrinking, and to the well-intentioned lifeguard who blew a feeble whistle twice and then gave up. Prior to this point, I had never been keen on the water, imagining only praying dark places and ocean floors that dropped suddenly away. My father, sensing pathology the way that bloodhounds catch the scent, had taken on my training as a kind of aversion therapy. And despite being the type of man to whom anxiety was only proof of thinking too hard, he had turned out to have the right idea. If you've got breath enough to scream, you're not drowning, was his most frequent refrain. And in as much as that, I had to learn to swim to avoid being fished from the bottom of the pool and taken directly to the corner. His method basically worked. When explaining the divorce to me, I remember my mother said that it had always been next to impossible to tolerate a man whose approach to problem solving was the psychology equivalent of a Wile E. Coyote-shaped hole in a canyon wall. That they were happier, unshackled from one another was obvious, and I certainly enjoyed them both better the moment they stopped pretending to share any common goal beyond me. My father taught me to swim, and later to scuba dive. My mom bought me Ultra Swim chlorine removal shampoo. I grew used to the water in stages. I grew used to the water in stages and then fell in love with it. Read the books my father bought me on deep sea exploration, dreamed in shoals of Humboldt squid and molten silverfish. I found I slept best to the telling of stories. I found I slept best to the telling of stories that flung me out onto the ocean, asked to be read to until I grew older and read the stories to myself. One of the stories I loved best was that of a man named Thor Eyerdal, a Norwegian adventurer, an ethnographer of the mid-1940s, or once sailed 5,000 miles across the Pacific in a hand-built craft, crewed only by 5 men. Heyerdahl had nearly drowned at least twice in boyhood and did not take easily to water, which perhaps was why I liked him so much. To know the ocean, I have always felt, is to recognize the teeth it keeps half hidden. There was a particular story from Heyerdahl's various writings that I returned to often, reading aloud to myself on nights when sleep was elusive. An account of a night on the ocean during one of Heyerdahl's many long overseas expeditions. I had read it first at the age of 9 and kept it folded tight in some tidy parts of my mind ever after. As we sank, I tried to recall this story, though as I did so, I felt the strangeness of attempting to soothe myself with the very element currently building to survivable pressure over my head, chiefly at night, so the story went, but occasionally in broad daylight. So here she's quoting the story, a passage of the story. Chiefly at night, so the story went, but occasionally in broad daylight, a shoal of small squids shot out of the water precisely like flying fish, gliding through the air as much as up to 6 feet above the surface, until they lost the speed accumulated below water and fell down helplessly. In their gliding flight, with flaps out, they were so much like small flying fish at a distance that we had no idea we saw anything unusual until a live squid flew right into one of the crew and fell down on deck. I loved this story, loved it. I suppose for its slapstick, but also for the way it went on to suggest that deep things routinely rose to the surface and sometimes even higher than that. In this account, Heyerdahl goes on to describe that dark nights on which strange, phosphorescent beings, on some occasions bigger than his craft, reeled up towards the ceiling of the sea and bumped heads before descending. As we sank, I tried to tell myself the story, and it worked to a certain extent. I thought of the way deep things move upwards, of the ocean's escapability, even despite its death. If you've got breath, enough to scream, as my father said, you're not drowning. And so I held my breath and thought about screaming and imagined the ocean coming to an end. Okay. So a new chapter here, Miri. I stand beneath the spray of the shower and scream for 20 minutes. I'm all right for the most part. It is only an occasion that I feel the need to scold myself down to the marrow sugar scrub my, sorry. I feel the need to scold myself down to the marrow, sugar scrub my thighs until I bleed in streaks and clog the drain with the expendable parts of me. I have spent the morning on the phone, shuttlecocking back and forth between recorded voices, the majority of whom desire a number I cannot provide, and the rest of whom want me to know that Michael is important. Around noon, I moved the phone from my ear and smashed it some 17 times into the wall before dropping the remnant and going to fetch the dustpan. Leah had been sitting on the sofa, but looked up at this outburst. For a moment, I imagined a kind of re-emergence. Leah, as I knew her, stepping out from behind the baffle of this person and asking me what the fuck I had done. This didn't happen. So after I had cleaned away the pieces of the telephone, I told her I was going to take a shower. And that, after that, I would see about getting a replacement. I want to explain her in a way that would make you love her. But the problem with this is that loving is something we all do alone and through different sets of eyes. It's nearly impossible, at least in my experience, to listen to someone telling a story about their partner and not wish they'd get to the point a little faster. Okay, so you're saying he likes long walks, you're saying she is a Capricorn. Skip to the end. It's easy to understand why someone might love a person, but far more difficult to push yourself down into that understanding, to pull it up to your chin like bedcloth, and feel it settling around you as something true. The thing about Leah and I knew the thing about Leah as I knew her was that every so often when I was pissed off and sitting on the sofa, she would grab my legs and start to battle them, chanting Tour de France, Tour de France, Tour de France, until I laughed. The French tour, the cycling French tour. So she's probably put her feet in and mimicking like she's cycling. Hi, hello, Keti. Welcome to this live. Well, thank you so much for joining today. We are page 51. Page 51. So we've read quite a good chunk. So I hope that you'll be able to keep up. If you have any questions, just ask. So where was I? It's easy to understand why someone might love, Tour de France, until I laughed. The thing about Leah was that 9 times out of 10, she couldn't bring herself to be unkind about anyone. But then 3 times a year would say something so blisteringly cruel about someone, we knew that she'd clap both hands to her mouth and turn in a circle as though warding off evil. At a point, perhaps 6 months after we'd first started seeing each other, she read a book in which a pair of lesbians emailed each other meaningful lines of poetry, and shortly afterwards, she asked if this was the sort of thing we should be doing too. If you ever send me poetry, I texted her, I'll cut your teeth off. And over the course of the next week and a half, she emailed me every poem from the complete works of Wilfred Owen, signing off every email with a winky face and a heart. She told me once that when she was young, she would imagine herself with scales that grew beneath the membranes of her skin, a flaking layer of silver blue between her bones and the surface of her body that would prevent her from becoming waterlogged if she were ever to drown. I used to think of her like this before we fucked, or when she rolled over towards me in the night, about hands pulling her down beneath black water, about scales growing over her eyes. She taught me to swim because I couldn't, held on to my waist and buoyed me along. If I wanted to teach you the way I was taught, she was always saying, I'd hold you under. we would go to the Lido in the mornings and sit in the cafe afterwards, damp in our clothes and eating bacon sandwiches, and Leah fishing ice out of her Diet Coke. She invited me to a dinner party with her friends from university, a guy called Toby, who lived in a basement flat masquerading as a flat pack furniture emporium with his much more attractive girlfriend, Sam, a couple of lesbian marine biologists called Allegra and Jess, who weren't a couple but had been at some storied prior time. A benignly boring guy called Dan and his loudly bisexual girlfriend Poppy, who had backcombed her hair like a televangelist and seemed to leave lipstick marks on literally anything that came within a yard of her mouth. I remember that night the way one remembered pivotal things, although in truth nothing earth-shattering happened. I found I liked Toby and Sam far more than I expected to. They told jokes that weren't at one another's expense. Did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Did a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf's bit that mostly involved slopping wine about and insulting each other before bursting out laughing. Haven't I got a bitch of a husband? Sam asked me, winking, vamping up her voice like Liz Taylor. I remember someone put on Age of 17, and Toby danced around the kitchen with Jess, mouthing along to the words. Someone had brought Lyle, and Jess made vespers in an assortment of plastic tumblers. There was a vegetarian lasagna, pork chops, and a bowl of mushrooms cooked in port, none of which went together. At one point, Lyle is actually a white wine that is produced here in Bordeaux, in the region of Bordeaux, and it's white wine that is very sweet. Yeah, it's and you use it as a cocktail. You can do cocktails with it, and or drink it cold. Yes, it's really very nice during the summer. Very refreshing. At one point, Allegra leaned across the table towards me and asked if I didn't think Leah looked exactly like Jean Seberg in Breathless. Jean Seberg in Breathless. They had studied on the same course at university, and apparently this resemblance was something that all of their classmates had noted. I looked at Leah, apparently fearing cutlery over from the counter. Leah with her short hair and her swimmer's body, the way she moved about the kitchen. I don't know who Jean Seberg is. Seberg is, I sort of saying, instead nodding my head and saying, yes, she does actually. How? Wow, I never thought of that before. So Jean Seberg is she's a model, actress. I don't know, in the 70s, 80s, probably. So, or 60, no, probably 60s, 70s. Yeah. And Breathless is the name of the film, probably. I wonder if it's not this French film. I don't know. With this French actor. Anyway, I'm not sure. I have to look it up. Let's continue. someone upset a glass, which spilled its content before shattering across the kitchen floor, and I was relieved it hadn't been me. I like the idea of living in the city, Jess said, but I think it's just because I hate the idea of being anywhere where I can't immediately locate any other gay people. Sam opened a bottle of red wine from the co-op, and someone asked if there was anything for dessert. Co-op is a supermarket, the name of a supermarket in the UK. If you say there was anything for dessert, if you say pavlova, I'm going to fucking kill myself, Dan said. Actually, the only thing I remember him saying all night. I don't know why people think pavlova is an acceptable thing to serve just because you're having a dinner party. Across the table, Leah winked at me, and I thought, in an unwanted flash, that I utterly adored her. What's wrong with pavlova? Toby asked, looking hurt. Someone put on an Ella Fitzgerald compilation. Have you not been with a woman before? Bobby said to me at one point, red wine mouthed, and leaned towards me with the effect of someone who might have designs on my tonsils. Have you? I asked. Have you? I asked, and she burst out laughing. Oh, honey, you know how people are like. I'm gay for Jennifer Aniston. I'm gay for Gillian Anderson. Well, I'm straight for Dan. At the end of the night, Allegra came towards me, bearing down in a gesture I couldn't immediately read, and which made me lean back in my chair a little further than I intended. I haven't come to embrace you, she said. You're just sitting on my jacket. I turned red and fished the jacket out from under me. Ended it over without managing to find something intelligent to say. You have to come back, Sam said, hugging me tight and whispering something which I think was intended to be conspiratorial. But, since she was rather drunk, was unfortunately only incoherent. Walking to the bus stop together, I told Leah what Poppy had said, and she snorted, leaning into my side with a force that knocked me off balance, and which I found I rather enjoyed. Oh, yeah, she said, grabbing my hand and dragging me into a run as the bus rounded the corner. Poppy is all right. She just likes people to know. I can't remember. Poppy is the gay one. Oh, there are too much bisexual girl. Yeah, to know that she's bisexual, basically. Here, no is in bold. And so here, it emphasized on the fact that here we're talking about this, that to know about the fact that she's bisexual. And she likes girls and boys. Yeah. Okay. I still don't understand, Carmen says. Why you need a landline? So here's we are in a different time frame here. There is a little space between the chapters. I still don't understand, Carmen says. Why you need a landline? We're waiting in line at Argos and can't be bothered to explain to her. We're waiting in line at Argos. Argos is a shop, like a furniture shop. And I can't be bothered to explain to her that I don't need a landline at all. I just need an excuse to be out of the flat. Yeah, it's furniture, but also electronic. Yeah, they sell all sorts of things. It came with the place, I tell her. You know how it goes. You break it, you bought it. Uh, it, yeah. I repeats. I repeats. You minute. Oh, sorry. You repeaters. You minute. You minitis. Humanitis. I think that's pronunciation. She replies and then says it again when I pretend not to hear her. Carmen read classical civilization when we were at university and is at a constant pains to remind everyone of this, despite the fact that when pressed, she could tell you very little this day of what it was she actually studied. So she likes to show that she knows classical novels and classical works, uh, but doesn't extend much in this. Like everyone, most of Carmen's higher education seems to have leaked out of her around her mid to late 20s, replaced in the main by methods of treating black mold by passwords and roast chicken recipes in the symptoms of cervical cancer and thrush. Once we've bought a new phone, we walk down towards the canal, and the landline was the phone. Oh yeah, I remember she broke the phone when she got upset when calling the center. So she went to August to, it's like yeah, this electronic shop, but they also sell furniture, so all sorts of things for the house. So they bought the new phone. Once we've bought a new phone, we walk down towards the canal, and Carmen has to stop several times to rattle a stone around in the toe of her shoe. Why don't you take off the shoe off? I want to say, and take the stone out, but my head feels sickish and heavy with the promise of oncoming weather. And anyway, what difference would it make? When I broke up with Tom, Carmen says, it was hard because for so long afterwards, I felt like I was still in it. Do you know what I mean? Like it moved on and I was still in this relationship all by myself. When you broke up with Tom, I said, you threw all his clothes out onto the street. Carmen looked at me like this is hardly the point. What I'm saying is the pain is in the aftermath more than it is the break. Well, we haven't broken up, I say, but thank you. Carmen is wearing her glasses today, and they give her eyes near telescopic exaggeration. We walk along the tow path sandwiched between the canal and the fenced-off gardens of the houses that back onto the water, and he asks me what it is I'm worrying about. She's been away so often before, she says to me without waiting for an answer, but in the kind of voice that strains to make it clear she's open to unpleasant confidences. Even before this time, I mean, I know it's for her job or whatever, but I can imagine it's frustrating. It's hard to navigate a relationship like that. Everything always working to her schedule, especially this time, with how long it took, with how long it was supposed to take. The world doesn't revolve around her, around when she decides to be home, you know? Okay, I think of saying, but that's not the point. The problem isn't that she went away, is that nothing about her going away felt normal. It isn't that her being back is difficult. It's that I'm not convinced and not convinced she's really back at all. Of course, I haven't actually given Carmen any details, which does make things harder to explain. Carmen might know that Leah was only supposed to be away for 3 weeks, but she doesn't know how Leah has been behaving for the most part. I think because I'm too exhausted by the prospect of her comparing it to something that Tom used to do. I remember when I was with Tom, and he'd play Red Dead Redemption all day and eat Pringles and not put his shoes away. So believe me, I know what you're going through. This, I suppose, is unfair of me. Carmen's my friend, my best friend. I sometimes worry that I'm supposed to want to share my miseries with her, to grasp her hand and confide all the blandly conventional problems that pepper my day as much as anybody else's. I do love her. I think in the main for her familiarity, for the way she demands to see me where other old friendships have fallen by the wayside, the victims of mutual inattention. She's a good friend, in as much as she is a present friend, or at least a friend who likes to make plans. And yet, too often I find myself stopped by unwillingness to admit to basic frustrations, to look at her across a coffee shop table and respond to 100 admissions with a straight "me too." Carmen talks about her bad dates, about arguing with her brothers, about hating her next door neighbors for always allowing their children to kick balls against the dividing wall. And I listen and I nod and I give her advice and I tell her things are fine with me, that I really can't complain. I suppose in the main, this comes from a wish to appear in control. If not to say superior. If not, yeah. I suppose in the main, this comes from a wish to appear in control, if not to say superior. I hate and have always hated her insistence on comparing Tom to Leah. And perhaps I have allowed this feeling to bleed too freely into everything else, allowed myself to clam up around the possibility of shared experience. Really, no one should feel as paralyzing superior as I do around Carmen, around a lot of people, especially given that in many ways I have little enough to back this feeling up. It's a failing, and one I am aware of. Carmen is patient with me, I think. Or perhaps she simply doesn't recognize my behavior as rudeness, accepts my role as a good listener as synonymous with being a good friend. Leah always used to say that I was kind, but I've never felt at all convinced of that. You're interested in people, she would say. You like to hear about their siblings, and I would tell her I wasn't sure that was the same as being kind to them. Mary, I realize I have not spoken several minutes, and Carmen is looking at me with a keenness which is at least 40% real, though unquestionable, assisted by the magnification of her eyes behind her glasses. It's all okay, I say vaguely, hoping this answers whatever question it is I've been asked. I'm just tired, you know. This at least is something true, something I feel I can give to her. Over the past few weeks, exhaustion has settled in the arches of my feet, in the small of my back. I hear you, Carmen says, reaching out to touch my arm and then changing the subject to some issues she's been having in getting her passport renewed. The day has turned suddenly nauseous. Smell of sulfur from a backed up drain. And I look towards the canal and wish the city were not veined with water, like the lines on the back of a hand. Right. Okay, so this is it for today. We reached page 58 and ended with a chapter with Miri. It was quite a long session. I hope that you enjoyed these passages and this live reading. Yeah, we read about 20 pages this time. Yeah. So, well, it was quite a good chunk of reading today. So, as I said before, please leave me a message if you have any comments on how you feel about the passages, and or if you have any questions on any particular vocabulary or something that it's not clear for you in the novel, on the passages that we have read so far. And yeah, also if you have any comments on what some passages, what you feel about what it makes you feel, and how you interpret some passages, and how you analyze them. So I hope you enjoyed this live reading. So make sure you subscribe to the book club to join our first live workshop on Our Wives in the Sea, Under the Sea this Saturday. Also, remember that you can also purchase the 3-part live workshop on Daisy Jones and the Six on my website store. And that's it for me today. I wish you a beautiful end of the day. And I will see you on Friday. There is a little change on the time. On the live reading schedule, I had initially planned it at 6:30, but the session will be at 2 p.m. Yeah, it's more convenient for me. So I will see you on Saturday. Bye, thank you. Hello, Ryan. So this is the end of the session. I will see you on Friday for session 4, and we will read pages 45 to 71. Yeah. So in the meantime, happy reading or rereading if you need to reread the passages to have a better understanding. And as I mentioned before, if you have any question, leave me a comment. Bye.